you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, US and UK launch joint strike on Houthi targets in Yemen, hit 36 sites across 13 locations. Raging wildfires in Chile kill at least 46, cause widespread destruction. In cricket, Bumrah's historic 6-wicket haul and double ton by Yashasvi Jaiswal provide India a 171-run lead against England in the second test. Let's get to international updates first. The US and United Kingdom have struck multiple targets against Iran-linked Houthi militants in Yemen. The UK government on Saturday called this third wave of strikes as proportionate and targeted. Its defense ministry released the footage and said that precision-guided bombs were used to strike multiple targets near the Sana'a airfield. The strikes hit buried weapons storage facilities, missile systems, launchers and other capabilities the Houthis have used to attack the Red Sea shipping zone. While United States Central Command also released photos showing a missile launch and flight operations for strikes. The Pentagon said that it targeted 13 locations across the country. The US and Britain lead the strikes against 36 targets in total on the second day of major US operations against Iran-linked groups following a deadly attack on American troops last weekend. The UN Security Council is going to hold an emergency meeting on Monday regarding the US strikes in Iraq and Syria. The meeting has been requested by Russia after accusing the US of intentionally aggravating the situation in West Asia. The strikes were launched in retaliation for the death of 3 American soldiers. The United States has issued a warning of more potential airstrikes after carrying out an offensive against 85 targets in Iraq and Syria. Now, this comes in response to a drone strike from an Iran-backed militia that killed 3 American service members. Our correspondent Nick Harper has more details from Washington.
We've seen considerable anger from the Middle East in response to these US airstrikes, Iraq and Syria, that were struck by the United States, but also Iran, who has backed the militia in those 2 countries, all saying that the US has violated the sovereignty of both Syria and Iraq, and also saying that the US is threatening to create a wider conflict in the Middle East. Iraq and Syria also saying that civilians have been killed in these airstrikes. Now, the US says that they struck targets that they intended to, and they were also telegraphing for several days that these strikes were likely to take place. It seems in the hope of minimising casualties. Reports that many of the militia in those command centres that were hit had evacuated ahead of the strikes. But there's still that fear now as to whether the US airstrikes will create a deterrence or become a point of escalation in this conflict in the Middle East. Now, Joe Biden has said that he isn't seeking a wider war, but he's also said that these strikes that took place on Friday night US time were just the beginning, that there would be more strikes potentially in the coming days against other militia or other command centres within the region. Biden saying that it will continue at the time and place of the US choosing. So the US is trying to deter future attacks, but there is still that overriding fear that what the United States has done may prompt further escalatory action from any of those 3 countries in the region. Although I think it is worth noting that the United States chose not to target Iran itself. There were no attacks on Iranian soil, and we have not seen from Iran, despite the condemnation, any threats to retaliate as a result of these US strikes. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
In an unprecedented move, Senegal postponed presidential elections following an outcry against the disqualification of opposition candidates. In a televised address to the nation, Senegal's President Macky Sall on Saturday announced the delay in polls without setting a new date. Voters in Senegal are due to choose a successor to President Sall, who is not seeking a third term. Meanwhile, opposition candidates called the president's decision to postpone the election a constitutional coup. An organization of influential Islamic clerics has also warned of dangers of postponement and appealed directly to President Sall to take steps to avoid fueling instability. The move to delay the election is unprecedented in a country that is seen as one of the most stable democracies in the West African region. The U.S. State Department on Saturday urged Senegal to swiftly set a date for a new election after President Sall announced the indefinite postponement of the presidential poll scheduled for February 25th. The U.S. Department's Bureau of African Affairs, in a social media post, expressed concern and urged Senegal to swiftly set a date for a new election after Sall announced the indefinite postponement of a presidential poll scheduled for February 25th. El Salvador goes to polls on Sunday to choose a president. El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, is expected to be re-elected for another 5-year term, despite a constitutional bar on immediate re-election. The supporters of 42-year-old Bukele see a leader whose iron-fisted policies defeated the country's murderous gangs. More than 2% of the adult population of the Central American country is behind bars, and several constitutional rights have been shelved. His critics are calling him a modern-day autocrat and fear that the poor Central American country is barreling towards becoming a one-party state, following Nicaragua, Venezuela and Cuba. International observers are expecting peaceful election day in the country.
In these 2 days during our trainings, field trips and meeting citizens, we've observed a peaceful environment. We haven't seen any sort of restriction in citizen liberties. So far, we can say this will be a peaceful voting day with guarantees for all.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris made a joint stop at their 2024 campaign headquarters on Saturday to rally staff and supporters ahead of a challenging re-election bid. The Democratic leaders and re-election candidates were joined by their respective spouses, First Lady Jill Biden and Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff at the office in Wilmington, Delaware. Biden is expected to face Trump, the far and away frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination. Biden's re-election bid goes before voters for the first time on Saturday when Democrats hold their inaugural 2024 primary in South Carolina.
I think you all get it along with me. We can't, this is not just a campaign. This is more of a mission. We cannot lose this campaign for the good of the country. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's not about me. It goes well beyond me. It goes about the country. And I think everybody knows it, and I think people are beginning to dawn on people.
Northern Ireland's Parliament appointed an Irish nationalist as First Minister for the first time in a historic shift. Michelle O'Neill is the first nationalist to hold the post as the government returns to work after a 2-year boycott by the Unionists. O'Neill first addressed the Northern Ireland Assembly in Irish, saying the appointment to First Minister was a massive honour. The appointment came as Sinn Féin's pro-British rival, the Democratic Unionist Party, formally ended a 2-year boycott of power-sharing government after striking a deal with the British government to ease post-Brexit trade frictions. Let's get to update on the Russian-Ukraine conflict now. Russia's emergencies ministry said that Ukrainian shelling on the eastern occupied city of Lysychansk has killed at least 20 people. Russian forces said Kyiv had targeted a bakery that is popular on the weekends. The attack came, as Kyiv said, Russia hit it with a fresh barrage of Iranian-made drones, which targeted energy facilities in the central Dnipropetrovsk region, leaving thousands without power. Thailand and Sri Lanka signed a free trade agreement on Saturday, a move Sri Lanka hopes will help it emerge from its worst financial crisis in decades. A delegation headed by Thai Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin arrived in Colombo to sign the FTA along with other agreements. Thavisin will also attend Sri Lanka's 76th Independence Day celebrations. The FTA is aimed at enhancing market opportunities with negotiations covering various aspects such as trade in goods, investment, customs procedures, and intellectual property rights. Swiss farmers protest against rising costs and low prices for their food produce, joining a movement that has spread across Europe. The protest included around 30 tractors parked on a square in the center of Switzerland's second largest city. Farmers driving up to 40 tractors also took part in a protest in the Basel region. Farmers' protests have erupted in several European countries in a sign of anger at low prices for produce, rising costs, cheap imports, and constraints imposed by EU's drive to fight climate change. Rudi Burli, president of the Geneva Farmers Union and Switzerland's two main distributors, dictate the prices paid to farmers, and that the protesters were asking Parliament to bring in measures that would allow farmers to negotiate more fairly with the buyers of the agricultural produce. Around 150,000 people attended a protest rally in the German capital against the far right and its ideology, the latest in a series of such demonstrations across Germany in recent weeks. Protests on Saturday also took place in Dresden, Mainz, and Hanover, in a sign of growing alarm at the strong public support for the party AfD. Protesters flocked to the Reichstag Parliament building in Berlin, where protesters gathered to protest against right-wing extremism and to show support for democracy. Earlier this week, a Forza poll showed that backing for the party dropped below 20% for the first time since July, with voters citing nationwide demonstrations against the far right as the most important issue. Turkey handed over keys to newly completed homes to some of those left homeless after last year's devastating earthquake, 1 year after the country's deadliest disaster. The Turkish government handed over the keys of newly completed houses to some evacuees. President Tayyip Erdogan said that 7,275 houses would be presented to the victims in Hatay at a ceremony organized in Hatay region, which was the most affected by the earthquake. The Turkish president said that about 75 housing units will be provided in the next 2 months. The government has planned to give a total of 2 million houses to victims this year. Powerful quakes on February 6th in southern Turkey killed more than 50,000 people in 11 provinces and left millions homeless. Let's get to weather updates from across the globe now. Wildfires ravaged 480 hectares in Chile's central Valparaiso. The Melosilla area fell victim last Friday, attributed to high temperatures. With strong winds complicating containment, 10 aircraft assisted. Chile's national forestry body reported 7,000 burned hectares in Valparaiso and also resulted in casualty of 46 people as per the latest reports. The situation remains critical, necessitating continued vigilance and support. Paula Guterres, presidential delegate for Valparaiso, cited the weather's role.
El incendio del sector de Melosilla, donde nos encontramos en este minuto, es una afectación a aproximadamente 480 hectáreas. Es un incendio que ha avanzado rápidamente, producto también de las condiciones climáticas, la temperatura, el calor extremo.
Southern California encountered heavy rainfall from the first of the 2 consecutive atmospheric river storms. The deluge caused localized flooding and stranded vehicles. Flash flood warnings were issued for Los Angeles County, with flood advisories in San Diego and Orange counties. A more intense second storm is projected to impact California with high winds and substantial rainfall, enhancing the flood risk. Floods hit Peru as rivers overflew from heavy rainfall, submerging streets and causing damages to homes. The Tiamara River floods a sports field in Junín, destroying basketball and football fields with houses and crops affected. In Cajamarca, residents used plastic containers to clear muddy waters from their homes. The Peruvian National Meteorological and Hydrological Service warned that the coastal El Nino phenomena will persist until late summer, resulting in the ongoing impact. Storm Ingan batters Norway, cancelling ferries, causing road closures and damaging buildings. After hitting southern and central areas, it moved north overnight. Police in the coastal town of Bodo, north of the Arctic Circle, cordoned off the centre and advised inhabitants to stay indoors. The Norwegian Meteorological Institute reports record-breaking wind speeds, with the highest at 54.4 meters per second in central Norway. The heads of state and government of Southern African Development Community, that is SADC, have proposed a joint cholera response plan to control the spread of the disease in the member states. Thousands of people have been infected and hundreds have died in the region from the disease since late last year. Let's get the latest information on this from DD India correspondent Isaac Lucando.
Leaders of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, have recommended synchronized cross-border vaccination campaigns against cholera. Since January last year, cholera has affected Botswana, South Africa, Mozambique, Zambia, Tanzania and the DRC, among others. Experts say this outbreak could be the worst cholera crisis in Southern Africa in years. UN agencies have reported 200,000 plus infections and 300,000 plus deaths in 13 African countries since last year. January alone witnessed 6,000 new cases and 355 deaths in 9 countries. SADC member states say they aim to enhance their ability to assess the risk of outbreaks across borders and improve public health surveillance. The economic bloc also plans joint efforts to improve early detection and disease prevention. Cholera, waterborne and lethal, mostly impacts communities with poor water and sanitation. Isaac Lucando in Dar es Salaam reporting for DD India.
Let's get to other updates making it to the headlines from across the world. Bruce Springsteen and other music stars paid tribute to rocker Jon Bon Jovi on Friday at an annual pre-Grammys fundraiser, putting their spin on hits such as Blaze of Glory from the singer's extensive rock catalogue. The 61-year-old was chosen as this year's Person of the Year by Music Cares, a charitable arm of the Recording Academy that raises funds to help musicians with healthcare and other needs.
Wow.
The upcoming Lunar New Year of the Dragon, in a festival with dragon dance performances, was celebrated in the Argentinian capital. China's ambassador to Argentina, Wang Wei, partook in the event by drawing the eyes on one of the dragons. Brazilians gathered in Rio de Janeiro's Sambadrome to bless the iconic venue a week ahead of the beginning of the carnival's competitions. Dressed mostly in white, members of the Catholic, Umbanda and Candomblé faiths took part in the ecumenical rite. The world observes the World Cancer Day today. Between 2022 and 2024, the focus is to help close the cancer gap. This year marks the third and final year of the campaign. The theme for the year is Together We Challenge Those in Power. This theme encompasses the global demand for leaders to prioritize and invest in cancer prevention and care, and to do more to achieve a just and cancer-free world. We're heading for a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. With focus on development, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate multiple programs in Assam today. Stay with us for all the action from Davis Cup, even as India holds an edge over Pakistan. Spectators in Bolivia witnessed a battle, but of a different kind. After the break, we get you an exclusive sneak peek into this face-off.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. After the break, you're watching DD India Live. With an aim to boost the overall economic development of northeastern Guwahati, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate and lay the foundation stone of multiple projects today. On his arrival, a grand lantern lighting ceremony was held around Veterinary College Field, Kanapara in Guwahati to welcome him. Over 1 lakh earthen lamps were lit to welcome Prime Minister. Today, Prime Minister will lay the foundation stone for Ma Kamakhya Access Corridor to provide world-class amenities to pilgrims visiting Kamakhya Temple. The Prime Minister will also lay the foundation stone of multiple road upgradation projects. Now, these projects will help improve the connectivity to Itanagar and boost overall economic development of the region. With a view to harness the tremendous sports potential of the region, Prime Minister will lay the foundation stone of projects to boost sports infrastructure in the state. The projects include an international standard sports stadium in Chandrapur, and upgradation of Nehru Stadium as a FIFA standard football stadium. Prime Minister will also lay the foundation stone for development of infrastructure of the Guwahati Medical College and Hospital. Also, foundation stone for development of a medical college at Karimganj will also be laid by him. Recognizing the crucial roles played by accredited social health activists and Anganwadi workers in the healthcare sector, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in her budget speech declared the extension of health coverage under Ayushman Bharat scheme. The inclusion of these frontline workers in the scheme aims to enhance healthcare benefits and support their invaluable contributions. A quick look at other stories making it to the headlines today. INS Karanch, an Indian Navy submarine, arrived in the port of Colombo ahead of Sri Lanka's 76th Independence Day celebrations today. The visit symbolizes the strengthened maritime relations between India and Sri Lanka. The submarine was welcomed by Sri Lanka Navy in accordance with the naval customs. Indian Army in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir organized a medical camp for Bakarwal community in Dahok Khalsa ahead of the World Cancer Day. Poonch, situated in Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, witnessed fresh snowfall, bringing smiles to the faces of tourists and locals after a prolonged dry spell as tourists enjoyed the beautiful and mesmerizing snow. Talking of sports now, in cricket, Jasprit Bumrah claimed 6 for 45 in a reverse swing masterclass to fetch India a handy lead on day 2 of the second test against England in Visakhapatnam. Replying to India's 396 in the first innings, England were cruising at 114 for 1, batting with unbridled aggression. Bumrah then turned the match on its head and England were all out for 253, conceding a first innings lead of 143. India were 28 for no loss at stumps for an overall lead of 171. England got off to a strong start with Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett. Crawley hit Bumrah for 4 fours in an over en route to a 52-ball 50. But the England innings fell apart after Crawley's dismissal. In Davis Cup, India has taken a 2-0 lead against Pakistan in the World Group 1 playoff match in Islamabad on Saturday. In the men's singles match, Ramkumar Ramanathan defeated Asimul Haq Qureshi in a grueling 3-set match. Ramanathan displayed resilience and determination to secure a 6-7, 7-6, 6-0 victory after losing the first set. In another 4-set singles match, in fact, Sriram Balaji overcame Akil Khan in straight sets. He won 7-5, 6-3 to give India a 2-0 lead on the opening day. India will take on Pakistan in the remaining 2 singles and doubles ties on Sunday. Carnival attendees were delighted in Bolivia on Saturday by a Battle of the Bands competition. Over 5,000 musicians dressed in colorful suits performed traditional songs in the city of Oruro. All right, on that note, we end this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off. And from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.